Hi, everyone, and welcome to the weekly consults with me. What we're talking about this week is developmental milestones, and what I'd like to do is actually present them to you, maybe through possibly a different lens from a lens that you've viewed them before. But one of the things, as a therapist, one of the things that, or as a social worker, licensed clinical social worker, one of the things that I got trained in is the Erikson's stages of psychosocial development. And there are 8 of them. And just a little bit of background on all of this, or sort of context to put it in place. Many of you have been asking me about preteens and teens and stuff like that. And I'm happy to talk about them, and I definitely will talk about them. And the thing that I get is that each stage, because preteens and teens are stages, sort of hinges on the one before. And so I'm just going to give you guys an overview, and I don't know how far we're going to get today. Please, 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 please ask questions. And so in the chat, so Erik Erikson was a psychologist, or I don't even know what he was, psychiatrist maybe. And I don't even know. Actually, I have his book. It comes from Childhood and Society. This is the book that it's based on. And let me see what the pub date is. Oh, 18 something. 1985. All right, so definitely in the 1900s. And there are 8 stages. It was first published in 1950 and then again in 1963. So there are 8 stages of psychosocial development, and 5 of them occur before the age of 21. So, kids have a busy time, and we all get that. But there are all kinds of developmental changes that occur physically, emotionally, cognitively, psychosocially, like that kind of stuff. And there's some really wonderful books out there. This is one of my favorites. It's called Ages and Stages, and we'll put a link to this one. The other ones, Childhood and Society, we can put a link there too, but it's pretty academic. This one is really user-friendly, and it goes from birth to, I think, through age 10. And it talks about cognitive development, emotional development, I think maybe physical development. I'm not sure. And this is one of my go-tos. I just love this book. So Erikson's theory is that there are tasks that occur in each stage. And if you complete the task of the stage that you're in, it makes it a lot easier when you move to the next stage to be able to complete the task, right? And it sort of makes sense, right? And if you don't, it's you sort of carry it along as undone business, if you will. And there's a lot of grace in life, and you get to, as an adult, as a teen, as a whatever, you oftentimes get to redo that stuff or move beyond it or deal with it or work around it or whatever. But I just think that it's sort of useful information when you see your kid, for example, doing the look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me thing that 3-year-olds do, which is very different from a 10-year-old or a 25-year-old or a 50-year-old doing look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And the 50-year-olds that are still doing that, chances are really good they didn't get it done the first time, and they're doing it over and over and over and over and over again. So does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions or anything? Let's see. So the first stage Okay, so I'll go through the stages. The first stage is infancy, so that's really from birth to 18 months, and the conflict, or um, the the task is trust versus mistrust. So if you complete the task of that stage, basically, um, you end up, the outcome, if you will, is that you have hope. Like, as a person, you have hope. So birth to 18 months, just tap into that, right? Like, kids can't drive cars. They don't speak verbally, most of them. Um, they don't communicate verbally, right? They really are completely 100% dependent on their caregivers. And there are tons of books that talk about the the um, the importance of kids' needs, requests, desires, wants being met appropriately, or in a way that gives them what they require in order to keep going, right? And so, how many of you as parents could tell the difference between a hungry cry and an angry cry and a tired cry and a get this person out of my face cry, right? Like, the kids from birth to 18 months communicate primarily energetically, telepathically, psychically. I don't know how you want to talk it, and I don't want to get new agey woo woo on you guys, but that's the reality of it, right? There's a symbiotic relationship between the primary caregiver and the baby. And this, what a symbiotic relationship is, that each benefits from the other equally, right? And so the primary caregiver gets a sense of feeling good about themselves and like that kind of stuff. And, the baby gets their needs met, right? They get their diapers changed, they get whatever, like that kind of stuff. And what happens at the end of 18 months is that, according to Erikson's model, is that an 18-month-year-old will have hope. Now, I should have said this probably at the very beginning. This is sort of general developmental stuff. Like, not everybody is created equal, and your kids may go through these phases slower or faster, and it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them. And so, anyway, but one of the tools that I want you to know, to be able to use, is to ask questions of yourself, like, what are they saying? What's required here? What are they asking for? What's the crying about? What's the fussing about? Like that kind of stuff. And for you to trust what you know about your child. Like, kids that are born with these, quote, symptoms of ADD, ADHD, and autism are different. And they're different from the, quote, norm. And so, whereas one child may actually require long periods of sleep, for example, during the day, many kids who end up getting diagnosed with autism don't. And I can't tell you how many families I've worked with where parents have come in and said, she never sleeps more than 2 hours at a time, and she never has, not from birth. Right? There's nothing wrong with her. She's just different. And so one of the really important things here for you to take away is this thing about trust versus mistrust. When your babies and your infants are so different from what the parenting books tell you, trust what you know about them and trust what the babies are asking you for. Don't go to, there's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with the baby, or, yeah, it's hard functioning. It's hard, functioning in a home with a baby that doesn't sleep more than 2 hours at a time. And so, what resources do you have? Who can you ask to help Do you have a partner? Do you have a mate? Can you like tag team each other? Like that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? Because regardless of how a being is put together, if you will, or a being and a body are put together, if their quote needs are met, they'll thrive. They're fine, right? And so whether your baby sleeps like other babies do according to the parenting books or doesn't, it doesn't matter. What does matter is how you approach that and how that particular pattern is handled. Does that make sense? You guys good with that? So I don't know what else. So all right. So infancy is birth to 18 months. And then, okay, I'm sorry. I should have done these. So the next stage is 18 months to 3 years, roughly. It's called early childhood. And that's the toddler thing. And this is, the conflict or the task is autonomy versus shame and doubt, right? But how many of you, for your 2 and 3 year olds, do they say, me do it, and then when they can't, they get mad at you because you're not doing it for them, right? But that's when they begin to separate from the symbiotic relationship that they have with you, and they begin to want to be who they are and not who you think they should be or whatever. There are 2 stages like that. There's this one, the terrible 2s and the terrible 3s, known colloquially, and then adolescence, right, where they really formulate quote an identity or whatever, and the outcome that you want to have from this is will. Like when they set out to do something, that they can actually do it. Like they really want to be able to do that. Or will is really maybe more challenging you and saying, no, that doesn't work for me. This is me. This is who I am. And this is a tough one. The terrible 2s and the terrible 2s and I don't know what the 3s are called, but they do that. Like you're almost damned if you do and damned if you don't. And what they're learning how to do is to do stuff on their own. And so it's awesome and difficult sometimes. The next stage is preschool, which is 3 to 5. The stage after that is school age, which is 6 to 11. And so there's some preteeny stuff in there. And then adolescence, which is 12 to 18. And I'm also going to go into the remaining 3, which cover the rest of your life from 21 on. So there's young adulthood that goes up to about 40 years old, and then middle adulthood from 40 to 65, and then maturity, which goes from 65 to when you leave your body in this lifetime. So again, 5 of them before the age of 21, and here it says before the age of 18 or 19, whatever. So early childhood, so with the terrible 2s. So that's also a stage where people go through I don't know who the other developmental people are. It's been a while since I've looked at it, but a quote narcissistic stage, which is the look at me, right? And if that's when they get up on top of the slide and say, Mom, look at me. And they do it over and over and over and over and over again. And it is a stage that they pass through. And if you applaud and do whatever and tell them how awesome it is and give them whatever it is that they're asking you for, like just flood them with that, yeah, you're the best, you're amazing, you're awesome, they'll move through it. Adult narcissists didn't pass through that stage, and they feel inadequate, like not good enough, right? They doubt themselves. Anyway, like that. And then the next one is preschool, which is from 3 to 5. The conflict there is initiative versus guilt, and the outcome is that they have purpose. So, right, that the will is the will and purpose sort of feed on each other. And look at the outcomes, right? It goes from hope as an infant to will, right? From 2 to 3 years old, roughly 18 months to 3 years old. But everybody who's had a 2-year-old knows about will. Like they have iron will, and that's good because it will hold them. It's a necessary quality to have as a living being on this planet in this time. And then the next outcome is purpose, which is I'm going to do this, and I'm going to learn how to do this, and and you can't stop me. That's another piece of that. But this is a stage. It's one of my favorite stages. I love kids, especially. I love all kids, but especially in these early ages, because here is where they start exploring things and finding things out and looking at things, and they're so curious. And one of the things that they'll do is ask why to everything, right? It's like, oh my God. And if they don't complete this task successfully, they end up with a sense of like guilt, like there's something wrong with them, that they're not good enough, that they didn't get it right or whatever. And we can talk about this later, but there can be all kinds of reasons or all kinds of things that occur in a family that can also create that as well. So back to the early childhood one, the 2 to 3 years old, that's where toilet training comes in. And sometimes it lasts into the next phase. But the thing about, people have been asking me about toilet training. One of the things with kids who have these symptoms, or whose bodies are like bodies of people with autism, is, remember the go back and watch the consults that Trina and I did together. But bodies are really different, and kids with autism often don't get the same signals that other people do about their bodies. And so toilet training may take longer. It may start later. And I know that it's a source of like huge frustration to a lot of families when their kids aren't toilet trained. And the only thing I can just really encourage you guys to do is to be really patient and to use the tools that we talked about to ask questions, and ask questions of yourself, like what's going to work here, and ask questions of your child, like, do you like, is it okay for you to be pooping your pants, or did you notice that your friends are like not wanting to be around you when you have poopy pants, and maybe do timed things, like, and ask. It may be that you'll be able to get a sense of their bodies before they do if you pay attention. I know, anyway, like that. But again, to not make them feel wrong or bad if they don't meet whatever the toilet training guidelines are in parenting books, and just be patient. Just know that it may take a while. Does that make sense? Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Is there anything? I'm reading the thing. Hi. Somebody gave me a heart back. What else? I'm not quite sure where to go. I guess I should just keep on going. So school age is from 6 to 11. And that's the stage of Little League and dance and singing and Legos, clubs, and like those kinds of things. And when kids go through that stage successfully, they have a sense of confidence about themselves, if you will. It's not really that like it is. I guess it is confidence. I think there's another word that I could use, but it's a really, and one of the things that I encourage parents to do whose kids are in that age range is, to the extent that you have time and resources, find out what they love to do, and and provide them with as many opportunities to be that and do that as you possibly can. So for kids who do the trauma drama and throw a lot of tantrums and ooh, right, get them on stage, like if they, because those are the sort of the raw elements of acting, like to be able, right. For kids who love to move, get them in sports or get them dancing or swimming or whatever. For kids with autism, horseback riding is just one of the best activities in the world for them. So to the extent that that's a possibility for you, do it. And some cities, some areas have places where they have horseback riding for kids with autism, specifically for that, like therapists that are trained in that. And if that's true for you, do that, right? What else? But it really is, it's a really key stage, if you will. And it's one of the most fun stages in the world, because they, when you find out what they love doing, and you provide them with the possibilities, with the opportunities to do that, they just thrive, right? It's just awesome. And so whether it's designing video games or creating Lego things or whatever, it doesn't have to be the sort of standard swimming, singing, dancing kind of stuff. These kids have different capacities and different abilities, and there are clubs and online things, and there's all kinds of stuff out there for them. And to ask questions of them, like with the video games and the like time that they spend on that. I've asked, like, parents come in and bring their kids in and say, this is a terrible problem and blah, blah, blah. And when I ask the kids, I always ask the kids questions. What do you love about it? Like, what do you love so much about it? And they'll give you information, right? But one of them was a little girl who was obsessed with video games. And her mom kept on trying to limit the time, and they get into these huge fights and that kind of stuff. And the question that I asked her is, what do you love the most about video games? And she said, I love seeing how they are created, how they're made, because when I grow up, I want to be a video game creator, maker, designer, whatever they're called. And it changed everything. I said that to the mom, and I suggested that she get her into classes or, find resources for her, but some way for her to develop that talent and that ability. Sorry, guys. And she did. So I'm just sort of rambling on now. This is the school age thing. I think what we'll do is save the other ones for next time. But if you guys have any questions at all about any of this, please let me know. I don't want this to be too dryly academic, and yet I also want to sort of reassure you that whatever is going on with your kid isn't wrong, that they're, and just give you a different lens through which to view this. Like, your 2-year-old throwing a tantrum is developmentally really appropriate, and your 3-year-old who won't listen to you, really appropriate. So, all right. Well, no questions today. So I will say goodbye, and we'll do the next ones. We'll do, if you have any questions, put them in the thing. And thank you so much. Okay. All right. Bye.